Hello, I'm Kelda Yoon. The Ford government's plans to redevelop Ontario Place have seen costs balloon by nearly $2 billion. That's according to the province's Auditor General, whose latest report takes aim at the plan and not only over the costs. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has our top story tonight.
Much of the old Ontario Place is now demolished. Work underway to redevelop it. The graffiti in front, a reminder that the controversy continues. Today, the Auditor General had a shocking figure of what it'll cost.
The estimated total cost to the province is now $2.2 billion.
It's a jump of $1.8 billion from back in 2019. After that, the government decided to move the Science Centre there, adding $700 million. That cost also jumped. It's now more to build and maintain a new science centre than the previous estimate to repair the old one. Though the auditor did qualify, that's in part due to construction costs, which also would have increased the cost of repairs. She didn't only highlight cost.
We also found that the call for development process was not fair and transparent.
She says an Infrastructure Ontario vice president exchanged 9 emails and 1 phone call with legal counsel for Therma, the winning bidder. And that Therma Canada is one of 3 companies that met with staff, including from the Premier's office early on, before they were supposed to.
There is a quote in the call for development document itself that says that the participants will not have access to government staff. And that is not what happened.
The head of Infrastructure Ontario says those meetings had no effect on who won.
Were on matters logistical and procedural and related to the responsibilities of parties. They did not bear in any way upon the evaluation of the proposals that came in.
In a statement, Therma says it followed the process and fully complied with the requirements at every stage. But given this report, the opposition wants the government to pay.
Kinga Surma, the Minister of Infrastructure, has got to go. And if she won't resign, Doug Ford needs to do the right thing and fire that minister.
Surma was away, reportedly ill, but the health minister defended her and says the minister won't be resigning.
I don't see why. She's actually leading some very important files and has made progress on them.
A couple more details the auditor found. The much talked about parking garage at Ontario Place could cost from $280 million up to more than $400 million. And Therma is expected to take 21 years after opening to break even. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
The AG's annual report also took aim at the province's opioid strategy, saying Ontario's plan to close safe consumption sites could have deadly fallout. Lane Harrison has that part of the story.
The Ontario government has charged ahead on its opioid addiction strategy without a plan for the risks it poses to people's lives. That's according to a review of the province's response to the drug crisis by Ontario's Auditor General, who wrote the province's plan to close 10 supervised consumption sites was made without proper planning, analysis, or consultation.
We found that the supervised consumption sites currently have, for the 10 that are closing, have prevented 1,500 overdoses. So there is a potential that those overdoses could occur elsewhere if they're not happening in the safe consumption site. Prior to introducing the legislation, the Ministry of Health did not assess the impact of the closure.
The report says the ministry recognizes the closures could increase risk of death and emergency room visits, and there's no plan in place to mitigate that or manage the financial and operational burden on hospitals.
The opioid crisis has been escalating since 2016. We see this in our communities. 7 Ontarians are dying a day just this past year in opioid-related deaths. And despite this, we have a government that had no interest in data, in planning, or, of course, in public consultation.
This week, the province fast-tracked legislation that would close 10 consumption sites in the province for being within 200 meters of schools or daycares, including 5 in Toronto and 1 in Guelph, Hamilton, Thunder Bay, Kitchener, and Ottawa. The legislation also includes a ban on new consumption sites being opened.
We knew that the government had no plan and that the government better get started on mass casualty planning if they are going to continue on the course of closing supervised consumption services. It was really clear yesterday in the House that they wanted to pass the bill as quickly as possible, as undemocratically as possible, so they could get it through before the Auditor General's report came out.
The health minister and premier often say the sites have led to communities filled with discarded drug paraphernalia, but the Auditor General found the ministry recognizes internally that closing the sites will lead to increased public drug use and an increase of discarded needles in public. Asked about that, the health minister is defending her ministry's transition to an abstinence-based treatment model.
We are enabling and investing in a model that I believe will ultimately lead to people getting some hope and getting some pathways to treatment. Our investments in mental health and addictions are unparalleled.
The government's addiction strategy includes millions to build supportive housing and open 19 new homelessness and addiction recovery treatment or HART hubs. While transitioning to those hubs, the Auditor General recommends the ministry finds a way to support former safe consumption site users and track the impact of the new locations. The ministry has accepted all of the recommendations. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
The Auditor General also looked into the Ford government's use of Ministers' Zoning Orders, or MZOs. Now, it's a tool that allows the province to override municipal decisions and fast-track development projects. The report found that from 2019 to 2023, the Ford government approved 114 MZOs. That's a 17-fold increase from the previous 2 decades. Dale Manukduk has this story.
The Auditor General found that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing approved Ministers' Zoning Orders, or MZOs, often ignoring environmental and agricultural concerns and the advice of experts and local government. MZOs are used to override municipal zoning and forego the planning process as outlined in Ontario's Planning Act. They're usually approved to advance provincial priorities, for example, housing. Some of the MZOs open up areas where there are no services and that are supposed to remain farmland.
This is the Minister's Zoning Order scandal, and it is part of the same larger sprawl and real estate scandal that the original Greenbelt scandal is part of as well. So the solution is to repeal all of these settlement boundary expansions.
The report came to a number of conclusions, including that ministry staff advised some MZO requests be rushed through without rationale for the tight deadlines, and that the ministry does not assess the financial impact of MZOs on local and regional municipalities or taxpayers. One MZO was approved for the expansion of Orchard Villa, a long-term care home that the military had to go into during the COVID-19 pandemic because conditions were so bad.
70 plus people died in Orchard Villa of COVID alone. That's a massive death toll. But in addition, since COVID, their inspection reports contain many of the same violations that were found by the military. I think the bar should be very high for provincial government overriding local government.
The report notes that 3 other provinces have similar tools like Ontario's MZO, but in the last 5 years, none of those provinces have used them. It also outlines instances where MZOs benefited Ontarians, like building housing for the homeless in Toronto during the pandemic, or securing land in Windsor for an EV battery plant that will create 2,500 jobs. The report makes 19 recommendations. The Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing says he's already implemented some, and
if we provide an MZO, it is my expectation that that results in a shovel in the ground. And if it does not result in a shovel in the ground, then I will not hesitate to revoke an MZO that is not being utilized for the purpose that it was given.
Minister Calandra says he's already revoked 3 MZOs since taking the role in 2023. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Cell phone footage taken of a smash and grab robbery at a Richmond Hill jewelry store is going viral. It happened yesterday afternoon at a crowded Hillcrest Mall as dozens of people looked on. Police are now searching for a handful of suspects. Greg Ross has the details.
Shocking video of 4 masked men smashing several display cases at People's Jewelers in the Hillcrest Mall at around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
First, we thought it was like shooting because the banging on the glass was so loud.
Call the police! Florence Katami works at a beauty salon next to the jewelry store. He can be seen here attempting to record his own video of the robbery, but in the panic of the moment, he forgot the most important part.
I thought I was videotaped him, but I didn't press on the recording button.
But he did see firsthand as these thieves made off with thousands of dollars worth of jewelry.
They were hitting very hard, and then they grabbed stuff and just ran away.
The man who recorded this video captured almost all of the robbery, including this moment when one of the thieves appears to assault one of the employees at the jewelry store as he looks through the safe.
This woman was fortunately not seriously injured, but obviously very shaken up, and she was dragged behind a counter. Fortunately, she was able to get away from him and was able to join other employees in a back room.
The man recording continued to follow the suspects as they ran from the mall.
Let's go, let's run away, let's run away. Come on, you mother.
We'd never encourage someone to do that. Again, prioritize your personal safety. It's very fortunate in this case that he was not injured and there was no physical altercation that took place with the suspects, but he was able in this case to get us very effective video that will help us moving forward.
The man recording followed the thieves out these doors and here into the parking lot where a getaway vehicle was waiting for them. Police say this Nissan Maxima that they were driving was stolen from Toronto and has since been recovered.
It is incredibly brazen, the fact that they would be doing this when it's a mall at 4 o'clock at the holiday seasons. It's not like there's no one around.
Police are now looking for at least 5 suspects. They're asking anyone who witnessed the robbery or may have cell phone or dash cam video to come forward. Greg Ross, CBC News, Richmond Hill.
The TTC board voting today to ban e-bikes and scooters with lithium-ion batteries from vehicles and stations during the winter. The board voting 6-4 in favor of the ban, which will be in effect from November 15th to April 15th each year. As safety concerns arose after an e-bike caught fire on a subway train last December. A report presented to the TTC argued low-income individuals who use e-bikes as an affordable method to commute could be disproportionately affected by this seasonal ban. And leadership at the TTC is moving to address serious questions about maintenance on the transit system. This after it was revealed that a major TTC service disruption back in May was caused by the failure of aging equipment. Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords has more.
Line 2 subway riders were forced onto shuttle buses during both rush hours on May 13th. Subway service halted after a maintenance car spilled hundreds of liters of hydraulic fluid on the subway tracks, making it difficult for trains to stop. A new report presented to the TTC board says the age of the maintenance cars contributed to the breakdowns, and it's difficult to tell from TTC records when they were last maintained. Board member Stephen Holliday says the TTC was lucky and has to do better.
I'm glad that the consequences of hydraulic fluid leaks on tracks don't have a sad and tragic ending.
Former CEO Rick Leary launched an investigation into the incident in the spring. That came after the agency said it was one of 8 fluid leaks in less than 5 months. TTC Chair Jamal Myers says the city will spend $63 million to buy new work cars.
This is something that the staff and the TTC have been asking for a long time, and this was part of the mayor's budget in terms of making sure this doesn't happen again.
The report is just the latest in a trio of investigations into TTC state of good repair. An Auditor General's report in 2023 looked at streetcar maintenance practices. And a report about the Scarborough RT derailment also raised questions about similar care and upkeep issues. But on a basic level, Councillor Diane Sachs says if the TTC can't maintain its maintenance vehicles, that sends a poor message.
It's a bad look.
And this city councillor says he can understand why commuters would feel uneasy.
But we also need to be concerned about safety when it comes to the maintenance of our infrastructure. And I'm convinced that we haven't done a good enough job.
Transit advocate Sheila Pisey Allen says the May 13th outage is a symptom of a larger problem. It raises questions about whether the TTC has proper funding to address state of good repair issues, she says.
I think today we're paying the price of investments that weren't made in the past.
The TTC board adopted the findings of the investigation today, and the agency says it will implement its recommendations, which aim to enhance safety. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Today marks International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and advocates and politicians in Peel region are speaking out, saying a benefit meant to pull people out of poverty is failing to deliver.
persons with disabilities already burdened by additional costs associated with living with a disability face insurmountable challenges in securing housing, accessing services, and affording basic necessities. The federal benefit is designed, if designed appropriately, has the potential to be transformative. However, the current proposed levels fall short of lifting individuals out of poverty.
The Trudeau government introduced the Canada Disability Benefit in 2022, promising it would lift hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities out of poverty. It currently provides $200 a month to individuals that qualify. Advocates say that's not the number, that number should be tripled. While advocates are calling for more to be done for those with disabilities, many are hailing a landmark $30 million donation made today by the Slate Family Foundation. As Brittany Billette explains, the money will go to 11 different disability organizations across the country, including a Toronto Children's Hospital.
So what do you hope for the future?
It was a special day at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital, one that's being called historic.
This is the largest donation in Canadian history to the issue of disability, to support from childhood straight through to elderhood people who have disabilities.
The hospital is one of 11 Canadian disability organizations that's part of a new partnership.
Alan Slate.
Made possible by a $30 million donation from the Slate Family Foundation, a charity funded by late media mogul Alan Slate. The money will help people with disabilities in every stage of life.
Not only is this donation going to ensure that kids who come to Holland Bloorview receive the best care, the most innovative technologies to ensure that the world is wide open for them, but as they approach adulthood, the gift is also supporting at Holland Bloorview and other organizations the pathway to get a job, inclusive housing, and ensuring that buildings across the country are accessible and inclusive.
Holland Bloorview will help lead the initiative, and it'll get $10.5 million. Hawkins says that'll go towards developing brain-computer interface technology, prosthetics, and more. The funds will also allow the hospital to then share its tech and programs with other organizations across the country.
I came here when I was 14, and I spent 19 months here.
This accessibility advocate says the opportunities of the initiative are endless.
It is the most historic donation of its kind, and to know that Holland Bloorview is chosen amongst other great institutions to receive this money, it's going to be life-changing. I'm really, really excited about it.
The former gymnast stayed at Holland Bloorview after an accident left her partially paralyzed and says the hospital will play a key role in the new initiative.
There's about 850,000 kids in Canada who have a disability, but we only have 150 or so developmental pediatricians. So the need is there, and Holland Bloorview will help to fund train everybody to fill those voids.
As a parent
For Zach Priest, who has a 5-year-old daughter that gets support from the center, the donation represents a turning point for young people.
People want to move out. People want to go to college. People want to just be independent and live those, fun years of your life. And that's something that's very much usually taken away from kids with disabilities. And I've experienced that myself, and I'm thinking about that with my daughter as well. What are her 20s, what are her 30s going to be looking like? And a donation like this just changes everything across the board.
In a statement, Gary Slate, the president and CEO of the Slate Family Foundation, said connecting and expanding programs and innovations from organizations dedicated to disability care and awareness will create an umbrella of support across Canada while dismantling stigma and creating a more inclusive society for us all.
Whoopsie daisy!
Hawkins says the donation will not only empower people with disabilities, but could also inspire others.
Our hope is that this gift will create a conversation of inclusion that will impact all Canadians.
Brittany Billette, CBC News, Toronto.
Right, we have Colette here with a look at the forecast. And Colette, a bit chilly today, but it was nice to see the sun out at times. It's always
Yes.
nice this time of year, right?
Yeah, when you could get a little bit of that blue sky, it's lovely, even though it was feeling a little bit cooler, because we won't be seeing the blue sky here coming up over the next few days. We've got some big changes coming for you. So yeah, today our highs were above freezing, made it to 2 degrees for Toronto, and certainly saw 3 degrees for Hamilton and Windsor area. Tomorrow, as we get just above freezing, it means the snow, and yes, we do have snow coming, that will be falling, will generally be melting until we get into the latter part of the day tomorrow. I'm talking for Toronto specifically. Elsewhere, it will be piling up. So the jet stream showing that deep trough here in the east. Snow squall watches, and yes, some snow squall warnings, especially around Owen Sound, northern Grey County, southern Bruce County, looking at some of those areas. And this is because of that flow, even in the Niagara region and eastern Ontario, coming out of the southwest, because the strong winds pick up from that direction first. Winter weather travel advisory, because the roads will be on the wet side with some wet snow during the day tomorrow, all the areas in that turquoise blue, and then blowing snow there, including around the London region. So reduced visibility in here as well. So generally light in nature at first, some flurries through the late overnight hours into the GTA, then light snow falling. It will be hard first for it to accumulate. By the time we get into the evening hours tomorrow, though, then we should start to see, 2, 4, maybe even up to 6 centimeters for the city. But it carries on elsewhere because of the lakes. There'll be that enhancement as this Alberta Clipper goes through. And then on the backside, we get the strong northwesterly winds, again, gusting 40, 50, 60 kilometers an hour. And you can see those very defined streamers. Yes, snow squalls setting up. Some of the same areas that have been hit so hard recently likely seeing a return. So snowfall potential, Toronto, that 5, 6 centimeters. We won't be seeing that much because of the melt during the day, but later on we will begin to see a few centimeters starting to pile up, and perhaps more than that into eastern parts of the GTA, like through the Oshawa region. There are those winds. Not only midday tomorrow are they going to be gusting 40, 50, 60 kilometers an hour, but midday as well as we head into Thursday. So that's something to watch out for. -2, feeling like -8. That's early tomorrow morning. And then we do get a warm-up, Kelda, coming. But that
I like the sound of that. I see 4 degrees on Sunday. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much,
that's
Colette.
coming.
And that's a show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everyone.